Danny Veltri, an executive chef from Edgewater, Florida, competed on the 5th season of Hell's Kitchen, one of the greatest seasons in the show's history. Today, we'll be going through Danny's entire run in Hell's Kitchen, from every important moment and confessional, and how this seemingly cocky 23-year-old was able to overcome the other chefs and Ramsay at his angriest to win this season. Be sure to subscribe and like to support these story videos, and with that, here's the story of Danny Veltri.
Bloody hell, here I go again.
It's the premiere of season 5, and Danny immediately made his mark to the audience in his first confessional, with him saying,
"I will dwarf everyone and make them look like they are nothing compared to me, this god of cooking."
Yeah, you can't get much more of a confident quote than that, and this likely means that Danny will either be a massive flameout or indeed dominate the competition. And at the signature dish challenge, Danny got a chance to put his money where his mouth is right away. However, safe to say, he would not make the best of first impressions.
And the name of the dish is what?
Mahi gone bananas, chef.
It looks like you've gone slightly bananas. It's hideous. Back in line. So the idea came from where?
I just pulled it out of my ass, sir.
Put it back in there because it sucks.
This is arguably one of, if not the worst signature dish from a winner ever. And again, when it comes to whether or not Danny will be a cocky flameout or a great chef, it seems to be set up for the former, and that would carry on into dinner service when...
Danny, come here, that's you. Overcooked scallop, let's go. It's not exactly rocket science.
Obviously, chef.
Come here, you. Come here.
Yes, chef.
Don't dare start getting pissy with me. Is that clear?
Chef. Yes, chef.
Good. Now just shut the up.
So yeah, this is arguably one of the worst episodes from a winner ever, as Danny is viewed as a cocky chef by the audience who is even talking back to Ramsay, and yet he can't back up the talk, produce an awful signature dish, and making a mistake during opening night. I was always a little bit shocked that he didn't even get considered for a nomination that night, but luckily for him, it would indeed be Seth and Sarah as the nominees, with the latter getting sent home. So while obviously not the greatest of starts for Danny, many other chefs had rough premieres as well, and so hopefully he can rebound going forward. Episodes 2 and 3 would be extremely quiet for Danny, and honestly, that's probably for the best after his awful premiere. In fact, in episode 2, he would get a 9 out of 10 in the scallop challenge, and his good performance on meat was highlighted. Episode 4 though will be quite the interesting episode for Danny, as despite having an awful premiere, and being pretty invisible in episodes 2 and 3, the confident but frankly cocky behavior would arise once again, when Gordon asked this question.
Who's the strongest on the blue team?
I believe I'm the strongest, chef.
Asking a group of people who the best cooks were, I would wait for that one arrogant to raise his hand and say, "It's me, chef."
I mean, hey, good for Danny for being confident, and one could argue his statement is true, but man, talk about putting a bullseye directly on your back, and this would lead to arguably the most infamous fight of the season after the blue team lost the challenge.
You gave me a hand walking the pancakes up, and thank you for that.
Wait a minute, Danny.
I'm not.
It's cool, man. Don't worry about it.
I'm not a hero here. I never said I was.
You said that earlier.
I am obviously the best cook on the team.
Want to hear something, dude? I will put circles around you. You know what? I need 2 minutes.
Take your 2 minutes, bro, because I haven't seen you in the kitchen yet.
So that takes us to what's sure to be a very interesting service, as Danny has a bullseye on his back, and if he even has a somewhat bad service, he'll likely be outcasted and possibly sent up for elimination. Let's see how he does.
Garnish, please. Where's the garnish? Where's the mashed potato? Where's the garnish? 30 seconds, I'm gonna kick you out personally.
It's working, chef.
How long?
It's gonna be a minute, chef.
Danny is prepared to deliver his attempt at the women's butter sauce.
Tomato butter sauce, guys.
Taste it. That's much better.
Thank you, chef.
That sauce now, tomato sauce, is much better. The one you sent over there was disgusting.
Yes, chef.
Yeah, that one there is 1,000 times better.
Yes, chef.
So while Danny has been shown to be somewhat unlikable so far, I think now the audience can really start to get behind him after helping out Ben despite the fight from earlier. But despite this, Ben would rally for Danny after his couple of hiccups on Garnish, and would even throw Danny under the bus at the nomination ceremony. So a pretty insane episode for Danny, as while on paper one would think him claiming he's the best would make him seem even more douchey to the audience, the fact that he helped out the main man calling him out is an awesome look, and one could argue he's now not only one of the main characters of the season, but also a true frontrunner, and most importantly, a fan favorite. Despite all of this though, Danny would have 2 more extremely quiet episodes, where really his only content is having a messy station. Like I always say, it's good to have quiet episodes every once in a while because that likely means you're not screwing up, but to basically be invisible in 4 to 6 episodes is just never a good sign, especially in old school Hell's Kitchen where characters are given more depth, and thus while Danny is a frontrunner, I can't imagine he's the odds-on favorite to win at this point with his edit. However, in episode 7, we would get a bit of foreshadowing, as Danny and Paula, the red team's strongest member, would both earn a point at the reward challenge, and then during service, Danny's rival Ben would have an awful service, and Danny wasn't about to overlook it.
Oh my God, look.
Ben was struggling, getting just beat up by Chef. Ben's just like Jay. During dinner service, he just falls apart.
This was one of the worst nights of service I've ever cooked.
Ben runs his mouth about a big game, but he sucked every dinner service. I wouldn't be sad to see Ben go.
Despite this though, when it came to the nomination ceremony, Danny, along with the other men, picked Lacey as their nominee while Lacey picked Robert, while Ramsey would actually call out Ben as the weakest performer of the night, other than Jay. And since Jay and Dee put the kitchen in such a hole, nobody else would go home. But I think this episode officially made Danny the top contender on the blue team despite his quiet edit, as literally everybody else in the kitchen is having problems, and despite the cockiness he displays at times, the other 3 members of the blue team seem to have more problems with each other. Not to mention, the foreshadowing between him and Paula would escalate the following reward challenge, which just so happened to be the all-important blind taste test. And while Danny would fall just short, the two would put on an amazing fight against each other, something to keep in mind going forward.
Carrot.
Water?
Wrong.
Celery.
Well done.
Celery?
That's it.
Yeah!
Headsets off. Well done, ladies. Well done.
I think episode 8 would also be the highlight of Danny's heroic colors being shown, as his service was highlighted for his great performance on Fish, trying his best to help out the sinking Lacey, and eventually leading the blue team to victory after her ejection.
VIP tables to me are just like any other table. I put 110 into every dish. 2 regular scallops, wells are right behind it.
Good. Very nicely cooked, Danny.
You got your lamb reheating?
No, I can't. Guys, I'm serious.
Hey, it's cool, man. Just breathe, girl.
Come on, guys,
Get your
yes?
lamb in your
Last
oven.
tables. Ramp
Grab
it
a
up,
pan.
Robert, yes?
Ben, that's our last ticket.
Sodas, please. Go. Okay, switch off. Let's go. Danny, Ben, Robert, well done.
Even though Danny wouldn't win best of the best that evening, he for all intents and purposes was, and for that matter, was likely the winner many other times throughout the season had it still been a common thing at this point in Hell's Kitchen. But speaking of common, episode 9 begins with Danny and Paula once again having the best challenge dishes, but this time, Danny will be the one to come out on top to win it for the blue team.
It's so hard. The winner is the blue team. Well done. Congratulations.
I will say, Danny's cockiness and annoyance of Ben would come back this episode, making fun of his challenge dish and laughing at his failures during service. But between this challenge win and once again dominating service, I think now he's the odds-on favorite to win, as Ramsey would officially name him the best of the worst, and have him pick between Ben and Robert for elimination. He would obviously pick Ben due to the rivalry, and him being the weakest performer that night, but in a massive twist, Carol from the red team was blindsided, sending us into the individual portion of the competition. And speaking of that, we would see Ramsey the next episode pretty much confirm to the audience that Danny and Paula were the frontrunners when he asked them who was the weakest member on their respective team, with Paula choosing Andrea, and Danny once again choosing Ben. But in the end, this was just a deke by Ramsey, as the final 6 were congratulated with their black jackets. So yeah, after an awful premiere episode, and definitely some cocky moments here and there, Danny had basically made no dinner service mistakes the entire season, and had even been a standout multiple times, especially during the challenges. Not to mention the audience has grown to respect him for indeed putting his money where his mouth is, as opposed to his rival Ben. But of course, it's a new game now in the black jackets, and it actually wouldn't get off to that good of a start for Danny, as not only would he lose to his rival Ben, but then he would have the audacity to be pissed off that Ben would choose Robert over him for the reward.
Now, off you go. It's going to be Robert. Robert. No.
Dude, I hate Ben. He's holding a grudge. I definitely think that I should be going to San Francisco.
Despite this possibly signing up for something, Danny would be absolutely invisible the rest of the episode, but that wouldn't be a bad thing at all, as the Black Jackets would have an all-time bad Black Jacket service, but luckily, Danny would seemingly be one of the chefs who were fine that night. So not exactly a great start to the Black Jacket phase for Danny, at least he wasn't getting his hand burnt, getting kicked out of the kitchen, or getting eliminated after a complete crash and burn. However, after this awful service, it looked like Danny wouldn't even get a chance to win his own restaurant, as Ramsey was completely done.
I'm shutting down Hell's Kitchen.
Tomorrow morning, you're all leaving. You're all going to Atlantic City. You're all leaving tomorrow morning, and you're going to come to terms with what's at stake.
We have 2,800 rooms here. At any given day, you have anywhere between 15 and 20,000 people come through the building.
The opportunity to be ridiculously successful is just astounding.
Despite the scare, the final 5 now have a new refound purpose of what they are competing for, and now everyone, including Danny, will likely take it up a notch during the home stretch of the competition. However, that final 5 would suddenly become a final 4, and while this is obviously great news for Danny, what a tragic moment this would end up being.
Unbeknownst to the other chefs, Robert has sought medical attention.
Just having chest pain.
Chest pain, okay. Blood pressure's elevated right now. It's 160 over 100. I would suggest that you may want to consider going down to the hospital.
What did the medics say?
I have pericarditis, which is a swelling of the sac around the heart.
You coming back?
No,
No?
I'm not coming back.
Danny must rebound though, as after this emotional moment, Ramsey would show no mercy by putting the final 4 into the biggest challenge of the season, as the winner of the challenge would win immunity to guarantee themselves a spot in the final 3. While Danny doesn't necessarily need immunity per se, if he doesn't win, and someone like Ben or Andrea does, all of a sudden a bad service could send him home simply due to lack of options. And in the end...
And the winner is... Andrea, well done. Really well done.
Thank you, Chef.
So all of a sudden, Andrea, who Danny admits was without question the weakest link and likely next to go, is now immune. And if Danny has a bad service while Ben and Paula do fine, he could go from frontrunner to not even getting a chance to run the pass. But during service, he would once again shine.
All right, I'm going up to the window with the pasta. Behind Chef.
Very nice, Danny.
I'm here to fight to the bitter end. Watch out, because I'm bringing the heat.
So yeah, Danny was so good this service that he was the only chef to avoid nomination, as Paul and Ben would be the nominees. However, Ramsey called on Andrea to replace Paula after she had the worst service that night, and due to her awful performance but having immunity, Ramsey gave her and Ben one more chance, and nobody else would go home that night. So even though this episode didn't necessarily highlight Danny despite his fantastic episode, it makes sense given how much was happening in this episode. And while it of course sucked to lose Robert, his odds have dramatically increased as Robert was far and away bigger competition than Ben and Andrea. But with that, now it's the official Final 4 round, and we finally get our Paula versus Danny showdown for the first time during the Black Jackets, and this is a massive one, as it was a taste and not make it challenge, probably the second most important challenge in Hell's Kitchen. Which one will come out on top?
That's hard. It's so hard.
I'm going for the one that didn't use water. Congratulations, Danny. Well done.
Yes. Thank you, Chef. Feels great to finally win. Yes.
Well done.
Thank you,
Absolutely spot
Chef.
on.
What a massive win for Danny, and in general, he truly is dominating this Black Jacket phase, with even Ramsey realizing just how much he's grown throughout the competition. However, during service, he would actually make one of his few mistakes all season, but quickly rebounded, and honestly, you would likely have forgotten about his mistake with how bad Ben and Andrea continue to do, being the clear nominees for the night, and in the end, Ben would go home, and now, only 2 chefs are in Danny's way. Episode 13, and the episode would not exactly get off to a great start for Danny, as the chefs would make a dish for 100 people. However, these weren't just normal everyday people, these were 100 of Los Angeles' best chefs. And safe to say, Danny did not impress these culinary minds.
Over 76% thought one dish was the worst. And that dish belongs to Danny.
I was embarrassed for them to think so lowly of me. It just kills me, man.
But honestly, as much as that sucked, and likely Danny's worst moment in Hell's Kitchen, it's better to fail at that than the pass, because if he doesn't do well there, it doesn't matter how much better he's been than Paula, and especially Andrea, because if he can't lead, he won't make it to the final 2. And not to mention, Andrea will put on quite the performance at the pass, not even backing down to sous chef Scott. But as long as Danny can do decently, he should be fine, so let's see how he does.
I told myself, all right, read the ticket, and then you get up there and you're like, Have 1 scallop, 1 risotto, 1 soup, and 1 spaghetti.
Stop! It's your job to spot this one appetizer missing.
Yes, chef.
And there's no time on there, so get a time on there. Danny,
Yes, Chef.
come on, spaghetti in the bowl.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chef.
I don't like it, Danny.
Yes, garnish, please, Gloria.
All right, Chef.
Let's go.
Stop, touch.
It's rock hard, Chef.
Come on. Danny!
I can do this. Table 52, 3 covers, 1 scallop, 1 spaghetti, 1 Caesar.
Good,
Dessert pickup.
good,
How long on a lobster, a Caesar, and 2 scallops?
good.
Coming up right now in 30 seconds, Chef.
30 seconds.
Okay, good.
Yes, Chef.
So yeah, not a bad past performance, but I think it's safe to say it was objectively the weakest of the three, and it really comes down to if his performance was that much worse than Andrea, and if Ramsey can overlook just how much worse Andrea had been than Danny throughout the season. But in the end, Danny would give a forgotten all-time great finale plea, and this young buck would earn his way into the final two.
Danny, why should you join Paula in the final?
Chefs get up here and they say, you know, this is all that they know how to do. You know what? That, chef. This is all I want to do. You know that I have what it takes to run the restaurant at Borgata.
The person leaving Hell's Kitchen this evening is Andrea. Leave Hell's Kitchen.
Man, what a run for Danny to this final two, as who would have ever thought that after the premiere, this cocky young chef would go on to dominate the season and become a beloved chef throughout it all. However, one could say the same thing about Paula, as she's been just as consistent and arguably even more likable than Danny, and this is without question the closest final two in Hell's Kitchen history up until this point. As per usual with old school Hell's Kitchen, the finale would be a two-part episode, with the first part being pretty stretched out. However, it was pretty fitting that Danny and Paula would duke it out one last time in a challenge after battling each other all season, in an attempt to get the first overall pick.
Is it going to be Paula's fish or Danny's beef?
I have to say it's Danny.
Danny's first pick would actually be Ben, which again shows how far he's come that the two now respect each other after being rivals earlier in the season, with Gio and Carol to follow, leaving Paula stuck with Lacey. So with all that said, it all comes down to this, and after dominating all season, one could argue now that Danny is actually the underdog after Paula did better than him in the previous episode's past run, and in general, with her being 5 years older, that's even more of a disadvantage for Danny. Not to mention that arguably her edit has been better. Danny has to be not just good, but great. Let's see how he does.
Danny.
Yes, chef.
Danny. That's called boiled lobster.
Yes.
That's gonna taste like rubber.
Pull a pan from up top right here. That's gonna be smoking hot. That big saute pan right there.
You can't be an ostrich on service. Turn around and run it, yes? Come on.
Yes, chef. All right, so I want my entrees in 1:30. I want those appetizers in 2 minutes.
You got it.
Yes, chef. Thank you.
2 filet right now, window. Gio, go ahead.
Let's do it. I'm plating. Guys, let's push. I ran my pass like a maniac. Let's go. I need fillets.
Right in my hand, chef.
Very good. I need garnish coming. Go ahead and rock and roll with that. That'll clear the board. All right, clear down.
Nice job, blue team.
Good job. It felt really good to get the rest of my food out first, actually. I felt real good.
So yeah, a truly damn good final service for Danny, but again, Paula wasn't exactly bad either. It is truly 50-50 on whose door is going to open. However, Ramsey, after what I'm sure was a long thought, made his decision, and Danny's dream would come true.
3.
Unbelievable. This is the best I've ever felt, man. I'm gonna be at Borgata in my own restaurant with $250,000. Like, holy.
Again, man, Danny truly is one of a kind chef, as he dominated Hell's Kitchen during Ramsey's prime angry years, and that is not easy to do, especially for a college-age kid. So let's look at the stats. Danny essentially only made 2 dinner service mistakes all season, with one other messy station issue. But other than that, he dominated services, oftentimes taking over for other struggling chefs, and even though he only won one Best of the Best award, he likely could have won it 3 or 4 other times this season. Not only that, but he was a challenge standout, having the edge over Paula in many of their showdowns, which one could argue even was one of the reasons why he beat her in the end. And while his leadership isn't Scott levels of dominant, again, his final performance especially was really good, and for a 23-year-old, leading your kitchen at that age is insanely impressive. But what I think is so unique about Danny is his edit, as I cannot stress enough how much of a tool he seemed early on, and in most cases, the editors would be setting him up for a downfall. But in reality, the edit wasn't hiding Danny's confidence, and over the course of the season, the audience couldn't help but respect a man who came into Hell's Kitchen thinking he was going to win, and I'll be damned he did, and in pretty dominant fashion. So between Danny's dominance and being a fan favorite on one of Hell's Kitchen's most watched and popular seasons, he will always remain as one of Hell's Kitchen's most legendary and beloved winners. So there you have it, guys, the story of Danny Veltri. Let me know where Danny ranks for you in your winner rankings in the comments below, and be sure to hit that subscribe and like button to support my channel and these story videos. With all that said, take care everyone, and I'll see you next time.
Get out of there.